I step out of the Uber and stare up at Amberwood Estate, a sprawling vineyard mansion that glows like a diamond against the dusky Napa Valley sky. My olive green gown, the one I saved 3 months to buy, suddenly feels inadequate against the backdrop of such opulence. Crystal chandeliers sparkle through massive windows. Champagne fountains catch the last golden rays of sunset. A string quartet plays something classical that floats across manicured grounds. My sister spent $240,000 on her perfect wedding, and $0 to hide how much she despised me. I check my lipstick in my compact mirror, buying a moment before I have to walk in. The reflection shows what I've practiced. Composed, professional, unbothered. It's the face I've perfected through years of Sloane's little digs and big betrayals. Aria, you finally made it. Sloane glides toward me in a cloud of white silk and expensive perfume, her smile bright but not quite reaching her eyes. At 29, my little sister has mastered the art of the performance, especially when others are watching. Everyone, she announces to a nearby cluster of guests, her voice pitched to Carrie. This is my sister, Aria, my forever single sister. Mia. The guests titter politely. One older woman gives me a sympathetic smile that makes my stomach clench. She's always been career-focused. Sloane, stage whispers, loud enough for everyone within 15 feet to hear. Some women just aren't meant for love. So, I swallow the retort rising in my throat and force a smile. Congratulations, Sloane. Everything looks beautiful. The hostess directs me to my assigned seat. Table 14, tucked beside swinging kitchen doors where servers rush in and out. Each time they pass, my chair gets bumped, sending little ripples through my half-empty wine glass. I survey my table mates, 3 other singles who look as uncomfortable as I feel, and Great Aunt Martha, whose hearing aid whistles occasionally. Still being too picky about men, dear? Martha shouts, her voice carrying across 3 tables. Tick-tock. I take a long sip of wine instead of answering. Across the room, Sloane holds court at the head table, radiant in her designer gown. Our father Charles sits beside her, avoiding my gaze when I try to catch his eye. Mom gives me an apologetic glance before looking away quickly. A server bumps my chair again, harder this time. I steady my glass and think about the teenage Sloane who stole my prom date, Jason Miller, quarterback with kind eyes, while our parents said, "Let her have this one, Aria. You know how she gets." And I did. I knew exactly how she always got everything she wanted while I was expected to be the reasonable one, the one who stepped aside, the one who kept the peace. During dinner, Sloane taps her crystal glass and stands for a toast. Her speech is a masterpiece of thinly veiled barbs wrapped in sisterly affection. To my big sister, who's always been my role model, she says, raising her glass in my direction. Aria, who is so married to her career she forgot to find a husband. Laughter ripples through the crowd. I maintain my smile, though my cheeks ache with the effort. A woman at the next table whispers to her companion, just loud enough for me to hear. Poor thing. Later, as guests mingle during the cocktail hour, Preston Hale, investment banker, tennis player, and now my brother-in-law, spots me alone by the bar and waves me over to meet his family. This is Aria, Sloane's sister, he says. She runs marketing for that tech firm in Seattle. Before I can elaborate, Sloane appears, slipping her arm possessively through Preston's. This is my sister, she announces to his relatives, the family spinster. The crowd's reaction ranges from uncomfortable chuckles to outright pity. An older woman pats my hand. You still have time, dear, she assures me. Have you considered freezing your eggs? My niece did it last year. Others chime in with helpful suggestions about dating apps and mutual friends who are such nice men, also single. One woman asks if I've tried wearing more feminine colors than olive green. I nod and smile through it all, the way I've been trained to do, the way that's expected. When the photographer gathers everyone for family photos, he calls out for immediate family only and gestures me to step aside. I watch as my parents flank Sloane and Preston, beaming with pride while I stand awkwardly with the other guests, nursing a champagne I can't taste anymore. I retreat to the bathroom, lock myself in a stall, and press my forehead against the cool marble wall. My phone shows it's only 8:30. The reception will go until midnight. I slide off my heels, feeling the cold tile against my bare feet. For a moment, I consider leaving, catching an Uber back to my hotel, and texting some excuse about a migraine. It would be so easy to run away, to protect myself from 4 more hours of this calculated humiliation. But that's what she wants. That's what she expects. I slip my heels back on and straighten my shoulders. 1 more hour, I promise myself. Then I'm gone. I'm heading for the restroom again when I hear Sloane's laughter, bright and brittle, coming from a small alcove off the main reception hall. The sound stops me in my tracks. Can you believe that dress? My sister's voice carries despite her attempt at a whisper. She thinks olive is her color. It makes her look like a sad, wilting plant. The bridesmaids' titters follow a chorus of agreement I've heard all my life. And wait until you see what I'm planning for the bouquet toss. Sloane continues. I'm going to aim it right at her, then have the DJ announce she's next, as if. My cheeks burn. I press myself against the wall, suddenly invisible in the hallway's shadow. You're evil, one bridesmaid says, but her tone suggests admiration rather than reproach. I made sure none of the cousins who actually like her are sitting anywhere near her, Sloane says, pride evident in her voice. Did you see her at that reject table? Priceless. The wound deepens when I spot the wedding planner passing by with a stack of place cards. I grab her arm, perhaps too firmly. Excuse me, I whisper. Was there a change to the seating arrangements? The wedding planner Jennifer, according to her name tag, glances around nervously. I'm not supposed to say anything, but... She pulls a discarded card from her portfolio. It reads, Aria Donovan, Table 3 in elegant calligraphy, Table 3, with my parents. Where family belongs. The bride requested last-minute changes this morning, Jennifer explains, sympathy softening her professional detachment. I release her arm, nodding my thanks as she hurries away. When I return to the reception, I watch my mother laugh at something Preston's father says. She catches my eye briefly, her smile faltering before she turns deliberately away. Around me, relatives who've known me since birth suddenly find their champagne glasses fascinating when I approach. Sloane has orchestrated more than a seating change. She's conducting an entire symphony of rejection. I slip through French doors leading to the garden, breathing in the night air scented with roses and expensive perfume. My feet hurt. My face aches from smiling. I kick off my heels, ready to walk barefoot to the parking lot, when something shifts inside me. This isn't about me, it's about her insecurity. The thought arrives with startling clarity. Every cruel comment, every orchestrated humiliation, they're not signs of Sloane's power but of her weakness. For the first time tonight, I don't feel hurt. I feel sorry for her. I slide my feet back into my shoes. I won't give her the satisfaction of driving me away. Not tonight. Act like you're with me. Go. The deep voice startles me. A man steps from the shadows of a nearby trellis, moonlight revealing a face I don't recognize. He's tall, with shoulders that fill out his tailored suit impressively, dark hair slightly ruffled by the evening breeze. Excuse me? I step back, hand clutching my small purse like it might somehow protect me. Bennett Walsh, he says, extending his hand. Preston's cousin from Boston. And you're Aria, the sister being systematically humiliated by the bride. His bluntness knocks me off balance. I don't know what you're talking about. I was having a smoke behind the rose garden when I overheard your sister talking to some of Preston's college friends. Bennett's expression hardens. She was describing in detail how she's been isolating you all evening. It was, he pauses, searching for the right word. Calculated. And you're telling me this because? Because no one should be treated that way, he says simply, especially by family. Something in his directness disarms me, but pride makes me lift my chin. I don't need rescuing. A smile tugs at the corner of his mouth. It's not rescue, it's justice. Big difference. Bennett studies me for a moment. Look, I'm not suggesting we storm the castle or make a scene. Just walk back in with me. Let people see you're not alone or defeated. Small victories. I consider his offer, weighing my options. Walking away would be easier. Safer. But the thought of Sloane's satisfaction when she realizes I've fled makes something stubborn flare in my chest. One condition, I say. Don't tell me how sorry you feel for me. I've had enough pity for one night. Wouldn't dream of it. The respect in his eyes feels unfamiliar but welcome. Ready? Bennett offers his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, I take it. His hand comes to rest respectfully at the small of my back as we approach the doors leading back to the reception. The warmth of his palm through the thin fabric of my dress steadies me in a way I hadn't expected. We enter together, and the shift in the room is subtle but immediate. Heads turn. Conversations pause. Sloane, holding court near the gift table, falters mid-sentence when she spots us. The cost of this moment hits me as we move through the crowd. I'm trusting a stranger when trust doesn't come easily. I'm playing a game I never wanted to join. But the confused expressions around us, the subtle recalculation happening behind curious eyes, there's a victory in that. It's small. It's costly. But as Bennett guides me toward the bar, his presence solid beside me, I feel the first ripple of changing perception among the wedding guests. Maybe that's enough for now. Bennett's hand rests at the small of my back as we return to table 14. I feel the gentle pressure, solid and reassuring, as we navigate through clusters of Preston's college friends. Their eyes follow us, curious about this unexpected development. Arya. Sloane's voice cuts through the chatter. She stands before us, champagne flute delicately pinched between manicured fingers, her wedding dress rustling as she shifts her weight. You two know each other? How interesting. Her tone suggests it's anything but interesting. It's accusatory. Bennett's hand remains steady against my back. We go way back, he says, his voice smooth as river stones. Arya just prefers privacy. I watch my sister's face transform, calculations running behind her eyes like an old computer processing new information. The story doesn't fit her narrative, and I can almost hear the gears grinding as she tries to recalibrate. Really? Sloane tilts her head, pearl earrings catching the chandelier light. Funny how you've never mentioned Bennett before. She turns to him with a brittle smile. And you've never mentioned my sister. Some connections don't need announcing, Bennett replies, pulling out my chair. As I settle at the table, Sloane leans closer, her perfume too strong, too sweet. When exactly did you two meet? Before I can answer, the DJ's voice booms through speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, in 15 minutes we'll have a special bouquet toss for all the single ladies. He pauses dramatically. Especially Arya Donovan. Where are you, Arya? Let's get you ready to catch that bouquet. A spotlight swings wildly around the room until it finds me. Guests turn, some smiling, others whispering. The heat of embarrassment crawls up my neck. Sloane straightens, victorious, and floats away toward Preston. My mother appears at my elbow, her silk dress the color of weak tea. Don't make a scene, dear, she whispers. It's her special day. After 33 years, I know the script by heart. Swallow the humiliation, keep the peace, be reasonable. I won't, Mom, I say, not looking up. Mother squeezes my shoulder and disappears back to the family table. Your mother seems concerned, Bennett observes, his voice low enough that only I can hear. She's always concerned about the wrong things, I reply, surprising myself with the candor. Bennett leans closer. Tell me about your work in Seattle. Marketing strategy, right? The question feels like a lifeline. For the next 10 minutes, we talk about digital campaigns and brand positioning. Bennett asks intelligent questions about market segmentation. I share anecdotes about difficult clients. Our conversation flows effortlessly, without the awkward pauses that usually plague my interactions with strangers. That analytics approach is brilliant, he says after I describe a particularly successful campaign. Most firms are still using outdated metrics. A woman in her 60s stops by our table, her silver hair swept into an elegant updo. Bennett, darling, she says, aren't you going to introduce me to your friend? Mrs. Hathaway. Bennett stands. This is Arya Donovan. Arya, Eleanor Hathaway sits on the board of Westbrook Foundation with my father. I extend my hand, but Mrs. Hathaway pulls me into a light embrace instead. Any friend of Bennett's is a friend of mine, she says, her eyes twinkling with genuine warmth. How long have you two known each other? The question hangs between us, a test. Bennett and I reconnected recently, I say, the words coming easily. Not quite a lie, not quite the truth. It was unexpected but perfectly timed. Mrs. Hathaway pats my arm. The best things usually are, my dear. As she moves away, two more of Preston's relatives approach, then a college friend of Bennett's. With each introduction, I feel my confidence growing. The story of our connection becomes more natural with each telling. Guests who had earlier avoided eye contact now seek me out. Bennett's hand occasionally brushes mine, nothing inappropriate, just enough to signal unity. I realize with startling clarity, I can rewrite this narrative without Sloane's permission. The DJ's voice interrupts again. Time for the bouquet toss, ladies. All single women to the dance floor. The spotlight finds me again, more deliberately this time. Conversations pause as everyone watches, waiting to see if I'll participate in this ritual of public scrutiny. I rise slowly, smoothing my olive dress. Bennett's eyes meet mine, a silent question. "I'll be fine," I say, though we both know it's not true. The dance floor clears except for a semicircle of single women, most in their 20s, giggling and shoving each other playfully. I stand slightly apart, aware of the contrast. Sloane takes her position, back turned to us, bouquet raised. "Ready, ladies?" The DJ calls. 1, 2. Sloane spins around suddenly, her eyes locking on mine. The smile on her face turns predatory as she draws her arm back and throws. The bouquet arcs through the air, not toward the group of eager women, but directly at my face. Before I can react, Bennett steps forward. With the casual grace of a former athlete, he catches the bouquet inches from my nose. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Sloane's mouth opens in shock. Bennett turns to me, offering the flowers with a small bow. "They're your favorite, aren't they?" He says loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "Peonies and garden roses." I accept the bouquet, fighting the urge to laugh at Sloane's expression, a perfect mixture of fury and disbelief. The crowd breaks into spontaneous applause. Someone whistles. The spotlight swings away, searching for the next moment of entertainment. 2 cousins from my mother's side approach our table, both smiling genuinely. "Arya, we've been looking for you all night," says the older one, Vanessa. "Your table is so far from everyone." "Eh?" "Not anymore," says the younger cousin, Michelle, sliding into an empty chair beside me. "Tell us about Seattle." Tell us about Seattle. As we chat, I notice Preston's grandmother, a formidable woman in her 80s, with a reputation for bluntness, making her way toward us. She settles her substantial frame into a chair across from me. "So, you're Charles's older girl," she states, adjusting her hearing aid. About time someone in this family showed some sense. The wedding planner hurries over, looking flustered. "Miss Donovan," she whispers, "I've moved your place card to table 3 for dessert." "With your parents." She glances around nervously. "It was a mistake. The original seating chart had you there." Bennett rises to greet 2 men in expensive suits. "Arya," he says, "these are my colleagues from Westbrook Capital. They've been interested in expanding their marketing reach in the Pacific Northwest." He turns to them with unexpected pride in his voice. "Arya is a brilliant strategist. Her campaign for TechSync increased their market share by 22% last quarter." The men look suitably impressed. One hands me his card. For the first time since arriving at Amberwood Estate, I feel a genuine smile form on my lips. I'm not actually alone here. I never was. The orchestra begins playing for the couple's first dance. Bennett extends his hand. "May I?" On the dance floor, Bennett's lead is confident but unassuming. We move well together, as if we've done this before. I glimpse Sloane watching from the edge of the dance floor, her expression darkening as Preston's relatives nod approvingly in our direction. Halfway through the song, Sloane cuts in, her white dress billowing as she steps between us. "Mind if I borrow your date?" she asks, not waiting for an answer before placing her hand on Bennett's shoulder. Bennett steps back, creating space between them. His voice carries just enough to reach nearby dancers. "You've spent all evening embarrassing your sister. Maybe let her enjoy this one dance." Collapsed. Gasps rise from the couples around us. Preston hurries over, his face flushed beneath his carefully groomed beard. "Sloane, honey, your father wants to speak with you," he says, taking her elbow. Sloane's face contorts with frustration. She opens her mouth to object, then seems to remember where she is. With visible effort, she composes herself and allows Preston to lead her away. I remain standing tall, my breathing steady, my expression neutral. I don't gloat. I don't need to. Around us, the music continues. Couples resume dancing, but I notice the glances sympathetic, approving, curious now, directed at me instead of my sister. Later, over cake at table 3, Bennett and I refine our story. We reconnected at a marketing conference in Chicago last month. We've been talking regularly since then. It's new, but promising. "It's remarkable how easily you fit into this chaos," I say quietly as my father discusses golf with Preston's uncle. "Good partnerships often form under pressure," Bennett replies, his fork capturing a bite of raspberry-filled wedding cake. I notice Preston's family members now greet me with genuine interest. My mother, Margaret, approaches hesitantly, her fingers twisting her napkin. "Arya," she says, "I should have checked the seating arrangements. I just assumed." She trails off, unable to finish the sentence. "It's fine, Mom," I say, not because it is, but because this isn't the time or place for that conversation. The DJ's voice interrupts again. "Gentlemen, it's time for the garter toss. All single men to the dance floor." Bennett squeezes my hand under the table. I believe that's my cue. He joins the small cluster of unmarried men. Preston sits on a chair in the center of the dance floor, Sloane perched on his lap, giggling as he reaches beneath her dress for the garter. The men jockey for position, some feigning disinterest, others clearly eager. Bennett stands slightly apart, tall and composed. When Preston flings the garter, Bennett doesn't lunge or jump. He simply steps forward, arm outstretched, and catches it with deliberate confidence. The crowd cheers. I know what comes next. Tradition dictates that the bouquet catcher and garter catcher share a dance and often serve as predictive entertainment about who might marry next. Across the room, I see Sloane whispering urgently to the wedding planner, who looks increasingly uncomfortable. The spotlight swings toward me once again, waiting. I have seconds to decide. Retreat to the shadows or step fully into this unexpected light. The DJ's voice booms across the reception hall. And now, tradition calls for our garter and bouquet winners to share a special moment. A spotlight finds me, standing frozen with the bouquet clutched in my hands. Across the dance floor, Bennett holds the garter, his eyes finding mine with a question. The crowd parts between us, creating a runway of expectation. Sloane hovers at the edge of the spotlight, her smile stretched tight as cellophane. This is exactly what she wanted me, center stage, about to be humiliated by a wedding tradition that pairs the desperate spinster with a handsome stranger. I take a breath, straighten my shoulders, and step forward. The hushed whispers ripple around me. "Go on," someone urges Bennett, who hesitates for just a moment before kneeling. My heart hammers against my ribs as he looks up, his expression serious but eyes warm with reassurance. "May I?" he asks, voice pitched just for me. I extend my legs slightly, the olive silk of my dress falling away just enough. The room holds its collective breath. Bennett slides the garter only an inch above my ankle, his touch respectful and brief, transforming what could have been mortifying into something almost elegant. When he rises and offers his arm, I take it, turning to face the crowd. Together we bow slightly, as if we'd rehearsed this moment for weeks. Applause breaks out, not the uncomfortable kind but genuine appreciation. Preston's Aunt Margaret, dripping in heirloom pearls and old money, catches my eye and nods approvingly. Two of her friends whisper behind their hands, their gazes following me as Bennett leads me off the dance floor. "You handled that beautifully," Bennett murmurs, his hand warm against the small of my back. "We handled it," I correct him, matching his quiet tone. The moment shatters when Sloane's voice cuts through the music. "Attention, everyone. I'd like to make an impromptu toast to my sister." The wedding planner frowns, checking her clipboard. "This isn't on the schedule." Sloane grabs a microphone, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "You know, watching Arya catch that bouquet reminded me of all her past relationships." Her laugh sounds like breaking glass. "Remember Tom from college? He broke up with her because what was it, Arya? Too intense about her career?" My stomach drops. Every failed relationship, every private heartbreak, laid out like appetizers. Or Michael, who couldn't handle her rigid schedules. Or David, who said she was emotionally unavailable. Sloane surveys the crowd, enjoying their uncomfortable silence. My sister has always been particular. But that's what makes her Arya, right? To my sister, may she find someone someday who truly understands her quirks. Our father Charles laughs awkwardly, the sound hanging in the air like smoke. Mom squeezes my hand under the table, a silent apology that comes 33 years too late. I feel Bennett tense beside me, ready to intervene. I touch his arm lightly, stopping him. This is my battle. I stand, taking the glass of champagne a server has just poured. The room grows quiet. "Thank you, Sloane, for those thoughtful words." My voice comes out steady, surprising even me. It's true. I have had my share of relationships that didn't work out. That's how we learn what we deserve. I pause, letting the words settle. To Sloane and Preston, may your marriage reflect the kindness and consideration you show others. I raise my glass, and the room follows, though several guests exchange glances. Those who understood the double edge of my toast hide smiles behind their glasses. Those who didn't simply nod along, but the message lands where it matters. Sloane's smile falters for a fraction of a second before she recovers, clutching Preston's arm a little too tightly. Later, as Bennett guides me around the dance floor, his hand rests lightly on my waist. "That was remarkable," he says. "You didn't let her make you cruel. That takes strength." I consider this. It would have been easier to match her, punch for punch. But not better. No, I agree, suddenly understanding something I've been missing all these years. My whole life, I thought the choice was between being a doormat or becoming like her. I never saw the third option. Which is standing my ground without becoming the thing I hate. The revelation settles into my bones, straightening my spine. My power isn't in making her small. It's in refusing to play her game. The song ends, but before we can continue, Sloane materializes beside us, her wedding gown rustling like angry whispers. "The photographer wants some sisters-only photos," she announces, already reaching for my arm. "By the fountain. Right now." I recognize the tactic: isolation, away from the protective buffer of witnesses, away from Bennett. But we're not in the school playground anymore, and this isn't 15 years ago when I would have obediently followed. "Actually," I begin, but Sloane cuts me off. "It's my wedding day, Arya. One photo won't kill you." The guests nearby watch this exchange, no longer pretending not to listen. Sloane's desperation is becoming obvious, her composure cracking like thin ice. Preston appears beside her, his hand coming to rest on her shoulder. "Honey, maybe we should greet the Andersons. They've been waiting to congratulate us." Sloane shrugs him off. "In a minute. This is important." "Sloane," our mother says, approaching with uncharacteristic firmness. "That's enough for tonight." Sloane's eyes widen in shock. Margaret Donovan has never said no to her youngest daughter, not once in 29 years. The shift is subtle but unmistakable. Like water seeking a new course, the evening's energy redirects. Two of Sloane's college friends approach me with questions about Seattle. Preston's mother, elegant in silver chiffon, invites me to the family brunch tomorrow. The wedding planner consults me about the timing of the cake cutting. Bennett stays close without hovering, his presence a warm anchor through it all. When he excuses himself to get drinks, Sloane's maid of honor leans in to ask about my marketing firm. By the time Bennett returns, I'm surrounded by people genuinely interested in my answers. Across the room, Sloane stands alone for the first time all evening. Her perfect makeup is smudged at the corners of her eyes, frustration seeping through the cracks of her composure. Two bridesmaids exchange concerned glances as they watch her down a glass of champagne. Preston takes her aside, his head bent close to hers, whispering urgently. She shakes her head once, twice, then nods reluctantly. Mom approaches me, her fingers twisting her wedding band the way she does when she's nervous. "Arya, she begins, then stops. I should have said something sooner. Not just tonight, all these years." Before I can respond, Dad appears, rocking back on his heels the way he does when he's uncomfortable. "Your sister's just high-strung today," he offers, the familiar excuse falling flat against the evening's revelations. I look past him to where Sloane stands, her white gown gleaming under the chandeliers. For the first time, I see her clearly not as the sister who torments me, but as someone so afraid of being overlooked that she'll destroy anyone who might outshine her. And in that moment, I realize I'm free. The evening winds down like a music box losing momentum. Couples drift from the dance floor, high heels are abandoned under tables, and the air smells of cake and fading perfume. I watch it all from a quiet corner, savoring the sweet taste of reclaimed dignity when Sloane appears beside me, her wedding dress whispering against the floor. "Arya." Her voice softens to a tone I haven't heard since we were girls sharing bedroom secrets. "Let's put this behind us. Family comes first, right?" I study her face, the calculated vulnerability, the practiced tilt of her head. The same performance that's worked on me 1,000 times before. "We should talk, just us sisters." She touches my arm. "Girl talk with my sister." Preston understands. Her words hang between us like sponge sugar sweet, fragile, and ultimately empty. Before I can respond, Dad appears at her elbow. "Arya, honey." He clears his throat. "Maybe smooth things over for the family photos? The photographer wants a few more of you girls together." Mom hovers behind him, her eyes pleading. Just forgive her, she whispers. You know how she gets. The familiar weight of expectation settles on my shoulders. Relatives watch from nearby tables, their attention a physical pressure. Will Arya cause a scene? Will she ruin Sloane's perfect night? 20 years of conditioning pushes me toward the path of least resistance. The wedding planner's voice cuts through the tension. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be having the last dance of the evening in 5 minutes. Sloane's fingers tighten around my wrist. Come on, we need sister pictures before Bennett whisks you away. Bennett. The thought of him steadies me, but he's nowhere to be seen. Across the room, Preston's father has cornered him in what looks like an intense business discussion. His eyes meet mine, briefly apologetic before returning to the conversation. Perfect timing, Sloane says, following my gaze. Let's go while he's busy. She pulls me toward the waiting photographer, who positions us against the backdrop of twinkling lights. Sloane drapes her arm around my waist, her smile dazzling. The camera clicks. Another, she commands, closer this time. I feel myself slipping back into the old pattern, accommodating, appeasing, disappearing. The decision crystallizes in my mind like ice forming on a pond. I'm happy to take one photo, I say, my voice quiet but firm. Then I need to find my date. Sloane's smile falters. But we've barely had any sister pictures. Last dance of the evening, everyone. The DJ's announcement booms across the reception. I turn away from Sloane mid-sentence, heart hammering against my ribs. The crowd shifts, couples moving toward the dance floor. For a moment, I stand alone, uncertain. Then Bennett is there, hand extended, appearing exactly when needed, like the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place. May I? He asks. Relief washes through me. Yes. We move toward the dance floor as the first notes of "At Last" fill the air. Sloane tries to follow, but the crowd closes around us like water. From the corner of my eye, I see Preston's grandmother, a formidable woman in her 80s, intercept my sister with a firm hand and what appears to be an urgent conversation. Bennett's hand settles at the small of my back, warm and steady. I saw her coming for you, he says softly. Figured you might want an exit strategy. How did you know? His eyes crinkle at the corners. I recognize the patterns immediately. My mother was the same way with my aunt, competitive, manipulative, always needing to be the center of attention. The revelation stuns me. So this wasn't just random chance? He shakes his head. I saw how she treated you from the moment you arrived. The seating, the bouquet toss, classic moves of someone who builds themselves up by tearing others down. We turn slowly, other couples becoming a blur around us. I thought you were rescuing me, I admit. No. His voice drops lower. This was alliance, not rescue. You were responding to her tactics with such grace. All you needed was someone to witness it, to acknowledge it. The rest you did yourself. My throat tightens. All evening I'd thought Bennett was protecting me, but he'd been partnering with me instead, a crucial difference I hadn't recognized until now. Look around, he says. I do. The wedding videographer captures us from across the room, her camera lingering. An older couple watches us, the woman leaning to whisper something that makes her partner nod. Preston's relatives, the ones who sought me out after Bennett and I danced, raise glasses in our direction. No one needed manufactured evidence of what happened tonight. Bennett continues. They saw it all, the contrast between you and Sloane, how transparent her tactics were. Truth speaks through actions. However, the song draws to a close. Bennett escorts me toward the coat check area where guests are gathering to depart. I reach for my wrap, and Sloane materializes from the crowd, her face tight with barely controlled fury. You turned my wedding into your dating opportunity. She hisses, low enough that only I can hear. The accusation hangs in the air between us. For a moment, I consider apologizing, my default response to her anger since childhood. Instead, I meet her gaze steadily. No, Sloane, you turned your wedding into a showcase of who you really are. I don't raise my voice. I don't match her intensity. I simply speak the truth that has been waiting all these years to be said. Her face flushes. She opens her mouth to respond when Bennett appears at my side, my coat draped over his arm. Ready to go, Arya? He asks. Sloane looks between us, something unreadable flickering across her face before she turns and walks away. Outside, string lights illuminate the path to the parking area. Our breath forms small clouds in the night air. Bennett walks me to my car, our steps crunching on gravel, wedding sparklers being lit in the distance, casting golden light across our faces. Was this just about surviving tonight? He asks, stopping beside my rental car. I pause, considering the implication of his question. Behind us, the sparklers trace light patterns against the dark sky. Laughter and music spill from the venue. The night feels full of possibility rather than defeat. My answer hangs in the balance between a temporary alliance and something more meaningful, something with roots that might grow beyond this single evening of shared strategy and unexpected connection. I look up at him, no longer feeling the need to run. 3 months later, I stood by the window of my Seattle apartment, phone pressed to my ear, watching the skyline transition from amber to indigo. The Space Needle glows against the darkening sky, a beacon I've come to see differently these past 3 months. I made reservations at that waterfront place you like for tomorrow. Mom says, her voice tentative in a way that still surprises me. Unless you'd prefer somewhere else? That's perfect, I answer, letting the silence breathe between us. Mom clears her throat. I've been talking about things in therapy, about Sloan, about you. A pause. I should have protected you more, Arya, all those years. The old me would have rushed to ease her guilt, to make this moment less uncomfortable. Instead, I watch a ferry crawl across Elliott Bay, its lights a string of pearls against the water. We're finding better ways now, I say finally, meaning it. My phone vibrates with an incoming text. Sloane's name appears with her familiar passive-aggressive check-in. Just wondering if you're still upset about the wedding? You barely respond to my texts these days. 3 months ago, this message would have triggered an immediate response, a careful negotiation to avoid further conflict while sacrificing another piece of my dignity. I set the phone on the windowsill without replying. I'll answer later, on my terms, when I'm ready. The realization settles over me like the twilight over the city. I no longer need her approval to feel complete. Mom, I should go. Bennett's flight gets in at 8. I say, smiling at the thought of seeing him. What began as weekly calls evolved naturally into weekend visits between Seattle and Boston. Not a rescue, as he'd insisted that first night, but a partnership built on mutual respect. He's good for you. Mom says, her voice warming. I see how you stand taller when he's around. It's not just him, I correct her gently. I stand taller because I finally decided I deserve to. After we hang up, I move through the apartment, straightening cushions that don't need straightening. This morning, Jessica from my team had lingered after our meeting, twisting her wedding band nervously. My sister keeps undermining me to our parents. She'd confided, eyes downcast. I don't know how to make her stop without blowing up the family. I recognized the exhaustion in her voice, the weight of always being the reasonable one. Boundaries aren't walls, I told her, speaking from a place of hard-won understanding. They're defining what's acceptable, what you'll participate in, and what you won't. The grateful surprise in her eyes, I never knew it could be different, felt like purpose emerging from pain. The doorbell chimes. Bennett stands in the hallway, overnight bag slung over his shoulder, grinning that slightly crooked smile that first appeared under garden lights a year ago. Traffic from the airport was brutal, he says, setting his bag down and pulling me into a hug that smells of coffee and cold air. Later, we stand on my balcony, his arm around my waist as we watch the city lights multiply against the night. The small velvet box from dinner sits open on the coffee table inside an emerald surrounded by tiny diamonds, chosen because green is actually your color, despite what anyone says. Did you see Sloane's card arrived? He asks, nodding toward the envelope propped against a vase of lilies. Her congratulations, the first genuine communication since the wedding, had surprised us both. The note was brief but lacked her usual barbs, almost as if written by someone trying to remember how normal sisters speak to each other. 70 guests, like we planned? Bennett asks, changing the subject to our vineyard wedding next spring. I turn in his arms, facing the question I know is coming. Should we invite Sloane? The night air carries the scent of rain and possibility. I think of the woman who tried her hardest to humiliate me, and the woman I've become because of, or perhaps in spite of, that night. Yes, I answer. Not because I've forgotten, but because I've grown. Bennett kisses my forehead, understanding in the gesture. My sister once tried to make me feel small, I say, looking out at the glittering city. She only succeeded in showing me how big my life could be without her approval. Inside, I slip off my heels and pad barefoot across the cool hardwood, no longer running from anything, especially not myself.